In April of 2008, in a quiet room in Spokane, Washington, a former investment banker and construction financier sat down for an interview that would circulate across the conspiracy underground for well over a decade. His name was George Green, and by his own account, he'd spent much of his life inside rooms most people never get invited into: corporate banking, large-scale construction finance. And according to him, deep enough inside the world's power structure that he referred to himself, matter-of-factly, as a former member of the Illuminati. In that interview, conducted by Project Camelot's Kerry Cassidy and Bill Ryan, Green made a claim that stood out even by the standards of a genre built on extraordinary claims. He said human cloning wasn't a distant future technology or a fringe rumor. He said it was already happening, that he'd had direct knowledge of it, and that the people running the world had access to biological duplication technology the public had no idea existed. To understand why anyone took this claim seriously, you have to understand the resume Green brought with him into that room, at least as he presented it. According to his own account and the biography published by Project Camelot itself, Green served in the U.S. Air Force, where he says he personally encountered an alien disc craft stored inside a remote hangar at Edwards Air Force Base. From there, his story moves into the corporate world: investment banking, work as a registered financial principal, securities underwriting, real estate development, and involvement in major construction financing. He describes being asked at one point to help build an enemy prisoner of war camp in downtown Las Vegas, and separately to serve as finance chairman for Jimmy Carter's presidential campaign. According to Green, he turned both down after concluding the ethics of the people involved were seriously compromised, and shortly afterward, he says, his own financing on multiple major projects was abruptly pulled, costing him millions of dollars. What followed, in his telling, was a kind of awakening, direct contact with what he described as Pleiadian intelligences and other benevolent beings, who he says have guided him ever since in a mission to warn humanity before what he believes is a coming planetary transformation. That mission produced a body of written material Green calls the Handbook for the New Paradigm, a multi-volume set of messages he says were telepathically dictated to him by an advanced, non-human intelligence rather than written by him in any conventional sense. The book circulated widely online, free to download, and by some estimates reached millions of readers over the years. They read less like a whistleblower's expose and more like a spiritual text. Discussions of consciousness, planetary transformation, and humanity's need to abandon fear-based thinking before some kind of large-scale shift arrives. It's worth noting that even within communities generally sympathetic to channeled or extraterrestrial contact material, Green's specific claims have drawn skepticism. Other researchers working in adjacent spiritual and paranormal research circles have publicly questioned whether the handbook's contents actually originate from any source beyond Green's own perspective, despite his insistence otherwise. A reminder that even inside the conspiracy and channeling community itself, claims like his aren't universally accepted at face value. So where does the cloning claim specifically fit into all of this? In the 2008 interview, Green described cloning technology as part of a broader pattern of advanced, suppressed science being withheld from the public by the same power structure he says he once had access to, alongside free energy technology, alternative cancer treatments, and other suppressed advances he discusses throughout his talks. His framing wasn't primarily about celebrity doubles or science fiction-style replacement scenarios, the kind of cloning claims that circulate elsewhere in conspiracy media. It was closer to an argument about withheld capability, that a small circle of people with access to advanced biological and genetic technology had capabilities the public had never been permitted to know existed, cloning among them, developed and kept quiet, the same way he claims free energy and other breakthroughs have been. Now for the honest accounting, because that's the part these stories usually skip. There is no independent, verifiable documentation supporting Green's specific claims about cloning technology, his Illuminati membership, or his described contact with alien intelligences. No leaked technical program, no corroborating insider testimony beyond his own account, no evidence trail outside interviews, self-published books, and second-hand retellings across conspiracy media. His financial and business background, the banking, securities, and construction work, is the kind of biography that could plausibly be verified through business and licensing records. But the far more extraordinary claims layered on top of it, the alien contact, the Illuminati membership, the direct knowledge of cloning programs, exist entirely within his own testimony. That doesn't automatically make him dishonest, but it does mean his account sits in the same evidentiary category as nearly every other whistleblower story we've covered on this channel. Testimony without documentation, credibility resting almost entirely on how convincing the person is on camera, rather than on anything that can be independently checked. It's also worth pointing out something structural about how this claim traveled. Green wasn't operating in isolation. His interview was conducted, published, and amplified through Project Camelot, the same platform that gave a stage to Dan Burish's Looking Glass claims and Bill Wood's Navy SEAL time-viewing testimony. Accounts we've also covered on this channel, both resting on similarly thin evidentiary ground. That's not a coincidence so much as a pattern, a platform built specifically to showcase testimony rather than verify it will naturally accumulate exactly this kind of story from exactly this kind of guest, each account lending a kind of borrowed credibility to the others simply by sitting next to them in the same archive, under the same trusted-feeling banner, interviewed by the same familiar hosts. Actual human cloning, it's worth saying clearly, is a real and legitimately discussed area of science, but not remotely in the way Green describes it. Reproductive cloning of complete viable human beings has never been successfully or verifiably achieved by any publicly known research program, and it remains illegal in most countries, specifically because of the technical and ethical barriers involved. What does exist, and is well documented, is therapeutic cloning research aimed at producing cells and tissues for medical treatment, along with decades of legitimate, publicly funded genetic research that has nothing to do with a hidden power structure or extraterrestrial guidance. The real science in this space is heavily regulated, openly debated in scientific literature, and nowhere near as far along as Green's 2008 claims suggested it secretly was, even 17 years later. So take George Green's cloning claim for what the evidence actually supports. A compelling, decades-spanning personal narrative delivered with real confidence by a man who says he once sat close enough to real power to see its machinery up close, amplified by a platform built to showcase exactly this kind of testimony, and at every turn, unsupported by anything beyond his own account of what he says he witnessed.